of the 7th generation Dodge Charger has come. And today, we pay respect to the Land Yacht. In 2021, the Dodge Charger was the most sold model in the Dodge lineup. Yes, this thing that you see over here was the most sold unit. And you're probably wondering, why is that? Well, a few hints. First is because Stellantis has decided that this generation Charger must go. But here's the interesting part. They have not said anything about V8s. They have confirmed that this generation must be discontinued, but they have not confirmed anything about the naturally aspirated V8s, whether they're going to stay or go. Somehow, people have had this idea that the V8s will go away. So everyone is running to buy the last V8, hence why this was the best selling model for 2021, which I think is far from the truth. In fact, the new generation Jeep Grand Cherokee L that I drove recently had a V8. So what happened to that? Why is that one coming with the V8 if the V8s are going to go away? One reason I think people think that these will go away is because of the new Charger, which, as you guys have seen, is full EV. And Stellantis was very, very smart in doing that, because that way kind of gave people the idea that we must buy the last V8s. Hence why everyone is just running. You shouldn't buy this car just because they're saying that this is going to be the last V8. You should buy it because you really want a Hemi V8 naturally aspirated, not because they're going to go away, because that's not going to happen unless you want to wait for the next generation. In January 2022, Dodge announced that the Hemi V8 5.7 liter, 6.4 liter, and 6.2 liter will be retired at the end of the year 2023, which means that they might introduce a different V8 generation. I'll have to admit something. I was never a fan of Dodge Chargers, or even Challengers for that matter. I didn't like the look. I didn't like the fact that they sounded so performance-like, yet a lot of them were not fast off the line, and some people don't generally care about that. But I'll have to admit this though. After spending time with these and bringing them to the drag race, I've come to really enjoy and like these models, like specifically because the way they look. They're aggressive, they're big, they're called the Land Yacht. And for a reason, because they're massive, long, and they can fit 5 people inside comfortably and a massive boot. But it's also the way they're designed. You see, these are also special because police officers use them, whether you live in the States or Canada. They're comfortable, they're spacious, especially for cops that carry so many things with them. It is important to have that space to come in and go out of the vehicle, so that way you can chase down and start doing some shooting, basically. For 2015, the Charger received significant exterior styling updates. Most notably, the new front end features new LED lights and a more aerodynamic nose that was less angled and featured a noticeable curve around the headlight housing. Suspension, interiors, and brakes were also redesigned. It's not hard to understand that these models are due for an update. The last one they received in terms of the interior was in 2017, where they updated the infotainment display, navigation system, and so on. But everything else remains pretty much the same, and it's been a while since these were made technically. Although it might be slightly outdated on the interior, it does offer quite a lot of features. Then here's one reason why you should look for, well, 2017 and up models, because they have a better interior overall. The cluster is digital and analog, then it doesn't have any heads-up display, but in terms of like convenience features, you got heated seats, ventilated seats. This has the Daytona package, which has this beautiful suede, massive, gigantic seats that you can fit in comfortably. For me that I'm 6'2", I can appreciate a car like this for day to day. Spaces in the back is great, like the trunk, the second row in the front. You can have a passenger on the right side and you don't have to like bump into them all the time. It's big, and that's when you start really loving these because of that space that you get, and yet they're very comfortable on the road. I know I've driven a couple of them. They're just great daily cars in terms of summertime and wintertime. All you have to do is just slap on some winters and you're safe with this thing. I like them, and I've got to enjoy them a bit more the more I drove them. Like for example, last time I had the Hellcat was perfect for day-to-day, although it was an absolute guzzler. But the way it handled on the road, the way it drives, the suspension system is comfortable. Everything just fits in this car. But a nice update would definitely bring this to the next level. Engine is another reason to love this car. Under the hood, it has a 6.4-liter V8 naturally aspirated that sounds like it makes 1,000 horsepower. Now this does have an aftermarket exhaust, which is another reason to love this thing, because with couple of $100 or so, or $1,000, you can make these pretty loud. Like the options out there are unlimited. Although it does feel like it has 1,000 brake horsepower, it only makes 485 brake horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. The only bad news about these models is the fact that they're heavy overall. Yes, they make 485 horsepower, but they're heavy, hence why they call them land yacht, because they're just long, big, but spacious at the same time. And also they're rear-wheel drive, so 0 to 60, it's not the best for these cars because it's pretty hard to get them to hook. Even with the best tires, unless you know what you're doing, you're gonna have a hard time. But on a roll, as we have seen in my races, these things, once they go, and they're pretty quick. Which brings me to the next question. Although police cruisers are not technically equipped with a V8 engine, but the platform shared between those vehicles and the 392, for example, the V8 6.4 liter, is very similar, which also tells me that these vehicles are very reliable, otherwise police cruisers would not be on the road as long as they are right now. In terms of the performance level, the 6.4 Hemi is great at stock, but in terms of pushing more horsepower, well, that's gonna be hard, especially because these engines are not built specifically to power boost. It's more to do with the fact that the pistons are not forged, the bottom end is not well equipped to handle that kind of horsepower, but for 485 horsepower is more than you need for day to day. The good news is that these engines can go hundreds of thousands of kilometers, miles, because the way they're designed and built, and most importantly, they've been on the road for so long that throughout the years, well, Dodge has fixed the issues. Therefore, these things can last as long as you can maintain them, and that's also important. Like for example, Xavier, who is the owner of this car, which we say thank you for today's video, said that the engine has been bulletproof. The car overall has been very much bulletproof. A few mods to this engine specifically, you got the strut bar, as you can see, the air intake. Other than that, it's pretty much in its own stock form. And if you are careful when you drive on a highway, it should be good in terms of fuel efficiency. But what's important is that these engines can last forever as long as you maintain them. Now, here's a few things that you need to know about these models specifically. From 2011 to 2014, they used a 6.4 liter Hemi, but they only made 470 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Then from 2015 to currently, again, still 6.4 liter V8, naturally aspirated. They made 485 brake horsepower and 475 pound-feet of torque. So if you're looking for one, well, I'd say look from 2015, 2017, because that's where you're getting the most horsepower. Another thing to love this car is the fact that with the exhaust, even stock, this thing sounds loud. With this one is an aftermarket, but listen to that. That to me sounds like this thing makes a ton of horsepower, and it's not obnoxiously loud. It's just loud enough. And if you don't want to have it loud all the time, you just drive it like a normal human being, civilized, and that's it. Or just keep it stock. I believe the stock sounds less loud than this. So in this case, like, you can't get tired of that noise, never. When it comes to driving experience, these things are spacious inside. They have a comfortable ride. You really enjoy just having as a daily, in my opinion. Like, I've had a couple of them as press cars, and although you're always tend to just push them and you're wasting so much gas, you can still get good fuel efficiency if you know how to drive. Like, for example, with my M3, everybody complains that they're just guzzlers in some way. I'm getting about 10 liters per 100 kilometers, is about 26 miles to the gallon, which is not bad. These are the same. Like, the Hellcat that I had recently, it only used 500 horsepower most of the time, even though it was 807 or so. This is the same thing. All you have to do is just drive it like a normal human being. I should be able to get good range. But what's important is that the comfort level in these models are just amazing for day-to-day, for long trips. Like, I have a passenger here, I have Xavier with me right now, and we're both tall dudes. And I'm not even bumping into him. The armrest is perfect. It's comfortable, spacious. Like, for me, 6'2", this thing feels perfect. For day-to-day, I could see myself owning one. In fact, before the M3, I thought about getting a Hellcat. The only problem I have with those is the fact that they're just too much on gas, specifically the Hellcats. And I would need something a bit more different in comparison to that. But it just, overall, these things are good daily cars and comfortable, roomy, everything you get in it. Like, although it doesn't have the latest tech features, you're still getting heated seats, ventilated seats. It has performance pages, which shows you quite a lot of information, can change a lot of things. Built-in navigation system. Can't beat it. You can't beat it. Oh, and you can do a lot of burnouts in this thing. Just I love that sound. I love that sound.